Good morning. I'm Christine Tabera of LMVA Consulting, and I want to welcome you to LMVA's Friday feature. On May 7th, LMVA hosted Leadercast Winnipeg 2020 Positive Disruption virtually. It's an event we traditionally host in person with many host sites around the world. Live broadcasted from Atlanta, Georgia, this year we had the ability to offer this event virtually to attendees. Today, we have Jane Helbrecht, CPHR, partner of Acuity HR Solutions, one of LMVA partners for the event, and our keynote speaker from the lunch at Leadercast. Hi, Jane. I'd like to welcome you here.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Great. Going to see if we can actually be side by side for this part.
Perfect.
I'm going to close that up. Great. And how are you doing today?
Good. Can't complain.
Can't complain. So it's been a few days since Leadercast. What did you think of the event? It was your first time there and first time presenting to this group and seeing the speakers. What are some initial thoughts?
I really enjoyed it. It was a good day. It was good variety in terms of the different speakers. And, I thought it was really interesting hearing from all of the local attendees, those that sort of were with us virtually through this experience. Because I always think it's so interesting how, something that maybe didn't strike me as being super meaningful might strike somebody else as being like a real lightning bolt. And I love how, all of these different speakers are sharing things that, different people need to hear. So though it might not have been something I needed to hear that day, it was something somebody else needed to hear and vice versa. So I really enjoyed hearing what other people had gotten from all of these incredible speakers.
Well, I loved how there was such an assortment over the day. You're right. People will come out and walk away with so many different elements and things that are important to them through the combination of walking away with practical key takeaways to some of the stories that were shared. There was so much great information. I don't know about you, but my notebook was full at the end of the day. I was frantically writing notes and just trying to kind of capture as much as I could. And actually I took advantage of being able to watch it the next day and watch a couple sessions. So what was your favorite? Who was your favorite out of the day?
Yeah, that's a tough question because there were so many good people. I really enjoyed Sangram.
Yeah.
Again, he sort of hit me, where I needed to be from a business perspective. I really thought that some of the ideas that he had around, building your business and what that looks like is really interesting. And, the picture of success that he talked about painting, that sort of future vision and picture of success was really interesting to me. And it made me think that it's something that we probably need to reevaluate as a business. It's not an exercise we've done for our business super recently. And so I was thinking, we need to get the team together and say, like, what do we paint that picture as for that future vision, that picture of success that we want? So I found that to be really meaningful and very practical, like something I could take back to my team and something that we could, take on.
Well, and he talks about that whole vision of success and building that community and building that followership. And I mean, that's so important because we all need to have a sense that we belong somewhere and with something and have a cause to believe in. So I agree. You look at different organizations and the 4 different quadrants that he had highlighted. We all focus on those quadrants, but do we all focus on them all at the same time so we hit that sweet spot?
For sure. And even that, the first piece was that picture of success piece. The next one was extreme focus. Yes. And again, thinking about, where are we going? What are we doing? And like, what do we need to be focusing more of our energy on? Right. Yeah. So those were really meaningful for me. What was yours for the day?
Oh gosh, there were so many. I loved Amy Jo Martin's energy and excitement. I mean, all of her ideas are things that you think about, and why are we not doing it now? Like, if it's in our minds, if it's something that we're wanting to do, what's holding us back? Yeah. And I always find that speakers usually give us that added push. I mean, yeah. we all know what we want and we need to do. Sometimes we just need that extra added encouragement. And so then you couple great speakers with conversation with other people, and it definitely helps. So I really liked Amy Jo Martin. Oh, but I also liked Rahif when she was
Yeah.
talking about the whole need for creativity and space, and her acronym
Yeah.
to future. Oh, geez, I can't even
Oh,
remember.
FOPA.
FOPA. FOPA is oh, I remember things in acronyms. But
Yeah.
future oriented,
Ding.
present acting. Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. And
I love that too. I really love that.
well, and the thing is that um, you know, when you think of what that vision and that future looks like, you know, what are we doing today that will help us in the future, and
Yeah.
what are we doing today that isn't? You know, she talked about the tools and, you know, evaluating all the tools that we use. You know, will they make sense in the future, and are we building those skill sets, those competencies to help us move forward?
For sure.
Yeah, no, they were good, but I did have to laugh when Andy Stanley started talking about leaders and how they should pick up their phones. You know, my phone rang a couple of weeks ago, and I forgot what my phone sounded like.
Yeah. Yeah, no, well, and Andy Stanley was great, and I really enjoyed Rahaf as well. I found, you know, the FOPA thing was really interesting. Again, that's something that I think can be applied personally and professionally, like
Yeah.
to your business as well as personally, is like, okay, future, you know, what's that future orientation, and what am I doing day to day? How am I presently acting to make sure that I'm doing the things that will lead me to
Mm-hmm.
that future place? But then also a lot of what she talked about around creativity, I found
Yeah.
really interesting, right? Leaving that space and time.
Right.
And, you know, I don't know if other people have found that during this time. And I think, you know, everybody's situations are a little bit different, but my work is certainly a bit slower. So I do feel like I've had a bit more time to think creatively,
Yeah.
and maybe work on some things that I might have not otherwise had the opportunity to work on. So that's been really interesting. And like giving, you know, intentionally giving yourself that time and space to do that, I think is really important.
No, I fully agree. She brought up that whole fact of staring at a wall for about half an hour. I don't know how many people do that, but
Yeah.
or in being intentional in having in trying to make that time to do that. But I definitely know that this time period has definitely allowed for creativity and that opportunity to reflect.
For sure.
So talking a little bit about intentional that leadership, that's one of the things that, and being intentional, I should say, was a general theme that came throughout the session. And you delivered a great keynote for attendees for half an hour on making time to lead and being more intentional when you're leading that team and working with your team
Yeah.
and giving out that time. So from your perspective, why is it so important to be an intentional leader?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's that difference between being reactive and being proactive,
Mm-hmm.
right? And most of us are not our best selves when being reactive,
Yeah, oh, definitely.
right? Like, you know, you run into the odd person that really thrives,
Yeah.
you know, in an emergency or in a crisis, but most of us thrive when we can, you know, be proactive. And so this whole idea of being intentional is about just looking for opportunities to be more proactive. And it really, you're right, it ended up being a theme throughout the whole day. And
Mm-hmm.
it related to what Sangram shared. It related to certainly what Rahaf shared as well. And I think one of my favorite things that Sangram said was, what did he say here? He said, being intentional is more important than being brilliant.
Oh, I love that one.
That, you know, it's important to be intentional and follow through, because like brilliance isn't enough,
No.
right? Just having the idea
Yeah.
or, you know, coming up with a concept isn't enough if you can't be intentional enough to execute on it. And so when it comes to leadership, you know, one of the things that I've seen is that I think really great leaders who make a really big difference to their teams and the people on their team and other stakeholders, they take the time to really understand people. They
Mm-hmm.
take the time to reflect on what's working and what's not working and to really experiment. And I think that takes a lot of intention,
Yeah.
right? It takes sitting down and being like, oh yeah, who is Christine? You know, what's Christine about, and how can I connect with her and build that relationship, right? And
Right.
that takes a lot of intentionality.
No, definitely. And it's important because not everyone is the same. Everyone has their individual unique qualities, skill sets, ways that they like to learn, ways like they want to be mentored, or how they like to learn from others. So I think it's important to be intentional on that. Oh,
For
that's
sure.
great. That's great. Now, so if people were looking at, learning ways on how they could become more intentional of a leader, I know that there's lots of resources, books, and things out there. What are 2 or 3 different recommendations you would have for someone if they wanted to make that first step in becoming more intentional?
That's a great question. I think there are, I'm going to say 3 things, even though I only have 2 things in my head right now, but I'll come up with a third as
another one. Why not?
Sweet. I think number 1, to be intentional, and this can be applied from a leadership standpoint, but from a business standpoint too, and it's something we talked about in my session, this idea of making time to lead, right? So I think if you want to be intentional, you have to make time to be intentional. We just can't all of a sudden magically become more proactive. If we want to be proactive, we have to build time in to make ourselves proactive. And so for a lot of leaders, that means taking, 30 minutes once a week and sitting down and thinking about the people on their team, what went well last week, what didn't, what am I going to do differently this week, who needs what from me right now, and thinking about that team dynamic, thinking about each individual, and actually building a bit of a plan, sort of recognizing that our team dynamics don't just shift on their own. We have to work at them just like we would any other big project or deliverable we have on our plate. So I might picture that vision of what I want my team to be and look like, what I want that team dynamic to feel like, and then start thinking about, okay, how am I going to build with the individuals and with the team as a whole towards that? So number 1 is making time to lead.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2, if you want to be more intentional, is to find a good set of engagement questions or some good way to give you some data on what's going well with your team and what's not, in a way that's safe for people to share. And so some of the best questions that are out there are through Gallup. Gallup has 12 questions that they've developed. Whether you even survey people to get the data or not, you could use those questions as a leader to say, like, okay, how do I think I'm doing on these 12 things? What should I be focusing on, right? So that could even just give you a sense of, like, hey, question number 6 is about recognition. This week, I'm going to focus on making sure I find great opportunities to give lots of recognition to my team. So I think that those can be something that just give you some direction on what will make a difference for your team.
No, for sure.
Make time to lead. Find some good engagement questions. The 12 Gallup questions could be a really good place to start. And the third thing to be more intentional that I was going to come up with brilliantly as I was talking, I do think that whether it's training or leadership coaching or even a little internal leadership accountability group in your own company or with friends can be really helpful. So maybe you decide, hey, we want all the leaders in our organization to go through training and get that accountability there. Maybe you decide there's, you yourself just want to hook up with a leadership coach or an executive coach to create some accountability, or maybe you have people internally. We have this online leadership training program that we offer, and a number of the clients I've been talking to who are signing up like groups of 10 people, one of the things we've talked about is, make sure that maybe every week or every 2 weeks, as people go through it, you get that group of 10 people together to talk about what they're seeing in terms of content, how they're applying it, what things aren't making sense to them, what things are really hitting home, so that there's some discussion and some reinforcement and some accountability there.
Great. No, that's fantastic. So 3 good things: make time to lead, have good engagement questions, and training and setting up some accountability groups. I think that's great information and great things to remember when you want to make your first steps in becoming an intentional leader. And we have to remember, some of us might be already doing it, but not realizing that we're doing it. So it's just to be conscious of that and put it down into an action plan that we can remember.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, Jane, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate you taking a few minutes to chat a little bit about Leadercast and talk about intentional leadership. Thanks again, and we appreciate Acuity HR Solutions being a partner with us at this event, and we look forward to future events with you.
That sounds great. Thank you so much for having me, Christine, and for putting on all of these incredible, leadership and business related events. We're super grateful to have you in the Winnipeg community doing all of this as well.
Thanks. Well, have a great day.
You too. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.